Another fire at a government-run facility has residents on edge. Ahead tonight, the connection to a firestorm it's created at a nearby school.
And a former police reservist accused of child pornography. We've got the details from the courts.
Plus, a big sigh of relief as 3 missing boaters drift into the path of rescuers. They are harrowing 6 days at sea. The Bahamas Tonight starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Kendino Knowles.
Topping the news tonight, officials spent the day trying to put out a fire and calm a firestorm ignited by conditions at the Marshall Road derelict vehicle facility and across a nearby community. The fire, which broke out last night, was brought under control by this morning, but left a series of problems in its wake.
Yes, well, the lingering concern is forcing area residents to sound the call again for the facility to be removed. For a third straight day, students were dismissed early at the nearby Anatole Rogers High School. Area residents say they've been dealing with the health hazard for even longer than that. Jimmy Swain reports.
The scene was all too familiar to residents of Marshall Road as another fire at the car dump filled the air with smoke. 2 fire engines and 10 firefighters were quite busy on the scene working to extinguish the blaze, which reportedly started before 6 Thursday morning. An excavator on the site made it easier for firefighters to carry out their work and cut off its spread, but the fire caused Anatole Rogers students to miss a 3rd day of school. Now angry Misty Gardens residents Peggy and Derek Kelly say they're fed up with the car dump and it needs to be removed.
It's a public safety concern for us because the smoke over a period of time was affecting the health of the residents in this area. It's also contaminating our water table, and then there's also a lot of traffic congestion.
So we are asking the Member of Parliament, Mr. Dorset, who is the Minister for Environment, to come and meet with the residents of Misty Gardens, let us know what is happening with this dump, and to address this as soon as possible.
Old vehicles, scrap metals, and propane tanks littered the site. So in addition to the ignition components they possess, concerned resident and biologist Derek Fox says there are other factors to be considered.
I'm concerned about the air quality in this area because today Anatole Rogers School had to be closed down, so it has a severe impact on the education that needs to be going on in this area.
Public analyst with the Department of Environmental Health, Anthony Ryan, was also on site testing for contaminants. Ryan said the department wants to ensure residents, students, and employees are safe.
We started moving away from a clean area with the instrumentation, and then we move into the fire. As we move into the fire from the clean area, we got little slight bumps, little slight readings, but they were all below what we call the alarm levels.
Director of Fire Services Assistant Superintendent Walter Evans also talked to us on the scene.
Looking at a facility such as this, where you have everything is just piled into one heavy lump, that provides a major challenge for the fire services when it comes down to having to extinguish a blaze. The blaze can easily spread to any portion of the dump site once it is set ablaze.
Misty Garden residents say ideally they want this facility removed because of the health hazards it poses. But until that happens, they say proper management would go a long way in reducing these constant fires. Jimmy Swain, ZNS Network News.
Well, Minister of Environment and Housing Kendra Dorset responding today, saying that at the end of last year, the government committed to removing the derelict vehicle facility from Marshall Road. He said the government is aware of a fire at that site and smoke concerns and understands that it's been a vexing issue for residents for at least 20 years. He assures that the government is working along with the Department of Lands and Surveys to identify a site for the car dump to be relocated. Additionally, the minister says the site cannot be shut down in the interim because of the work being done in conjunction with the Urban Renewal Program and cleaning up abandoned vehicles from across the island. Now, for the last 4 years, limited manpower has been contracted to lease the property from the Department of Environmental Health. But owner Larry Burrows says he sympathizes with residents, but insists that this latest fire is not his doing.
One of the fires was actually, I think, a sabotage. I was working, it would have happened last night, early last night. No fire being out in an half an hour. Under control. Accident will happen in any industrial like this. All over the world, it happens. But we have in place equipment to out it.
Now, Mr. Burrows says he recently purchased the D8 at a cost of $100,000 2 weeks ago to be in compliance with the ministry's request for him to be in a position to assist in extinguishing fires. He says the property behind Anatol Rogers, he no longer leases, but he is using his heavy equipment to clear it down with hopes that it would help in reducing the frequency of fires. He accepts, though, that the car dump has outgrown its current location, but moving will take time.
We trying to upgrade it. We trying to move it. If the resident go now and say picket to the government, they want to move me, I'll picket and say I'm ready now. It takes time because this was planned for actually 30 years ago. This was the right area. Now the government got to go back to work, a new government, and actually locate an area to move it.
Tempers flared last night as close to 200 parents packed the Anatol Rogers High School gymnasium for an emergency Parent-Teachers Association meeting. Altov's Munnings has more on the feedback of irate parents and teachers after days of canceled classes.
Problem at Anatol Rogers School now!
Irate parents didn't waste any time expressing their frustration on the problems affecting the Anatol Rogers High School at the school's Parent-Teachers Association emergency meeting Wednesday night. Their dissatisfaction went to another level when Principal Myrtle McPhee was outlining how environmentalists and Ministry of Education officials were addressing mold and smoke that's been affecting the school for quite some time now.
In fact, the area was clean.
Some parents even walked out of the meeting when they felt they weren't getting any answers. Now, the emergency meeting was crucial in order for parents to hear exactly how the school's administration and Ministry of Education officials, for that matter, are going to correct the laundry list of problems that have been influencing the school's operation.
Anatol is a school that's heading in the right direction. And as parents, we want to lead our children in the right direction.
The parents received some words of advice, though, while officer in charge of the Police Force's Southwestern Division, Superintendent Alan Emanuel, encouraged parents to effectively discipline their children. Bahamas Union of Teachers President Belinda Wilson believes all stakeholders must work together.
But if we teach them now how to behave themselves, if we teach them at home how to conduct themselves, when they come to school, it will make the teachers' job much easier.
If all of us work together, and if we are open for constructive criticism, and if we are wrong, we have to be big enough to say, like the children say, my God.
Environmentalists advised the Anatol Rogers administration Thursday on their assessment of the school, and according to the principal, that was to decide when the school will return to normal operations. Altov's Munnings for the ZNS News Network.
Well, former police reservist Sean Williams and 23-year-old Jonathan Forbes were each granted $15,000 bail today after being arraigned on 2 child pornography-related charges. Court papers show that on February 6th, Williams and Forbes produced photographs of an underage person which showed their sexual organs. It is also alleged that they were both caught with pornographic photos of the underage victim. they were not required to enter a plea. The case will be fast-tracked to the Supreme Court via a voluntary bill of indictment. Meantime, Sean Williams and Jonathan Forbes have to report to the nearest police station twice a week. They return to court on April 2nd.
Police have charged a 38-year-old man in connection with the tragic death of Margaret Ultime almost 3 weeks ago. Ultime, as you may recall, was gunned down at her convenience store. Our Fern Carey was in court today.
Police are holding 38-year-old Elizabeth Estate resident Dion Bryce, wearing the gray sweater, responsible for the brutal shooting death of 55-year-old Margaret Ultime. Police say Ultime was minding her small convenience store 2 Sundays ago when a gunman stormed in, shooting her multiple times in the head. Another person, experienced Some, was in the store at the time of the incident and was also shot in the leg. In court, Chief Magistrate Roger Gomez charged Bryce with Ultimate's murder and the attempted murder of Some. But the court still wasn't finished, charging the 38-year-old Elizabeth Estate resident with aiding and abetting in Ultimate's murder and armed robbery. Bryce was not called on to enter a plea, and a voluntary bill of indictment will be filed, which means a preliminary inquiry will not be held, fast-tracking the case to Supreme Court. Now, because Bryce is charged with murder, he's not eligible for bail in the magistrate court. He was remanded to prison. However, he can apply for bail in the Supreme Court. Meantime, he returns to court on July 1st. Fern Carey, ZNS Network News.
Well, good news tonight is the 3 men missing at sea for the last week have been found alive. Our Andrew Knowles spoke with one of the men who detailed the ordeal and elated family members and friends who say the news is the best Valentine's gift they could ever ask for.
For nearly a week, Cecil Cartwright III, Keno Greenslade, and Julian Wallace have been lost at sea, but they never gave up on hope and the power of prayer.
It's like, thank God, amen. That's what we was doing. We was praying, and amen, God really answered prayers, and it was just like everyone, like, basically just rejoiced that, amen, hey, we still here. Ain't no one give up on us, and we never give up on ourselves.
To say the last 6 days have been rough is an understatement. But Julian Wallace says they remained in good spirits. Luckily, they also had more than enough food. The trio left New Providence on Friday en route to Ragged Island on board a single-engine blue and white 25-foot cigarette boat. But they would never reach their final destination as the boat's lower unit blew in the Ragged Island chain. Then they started drifting.
On Saturday afternoon, we anchored at Seal Key, and through the night, Saturday, the weather came up and anchored in Nolan. We drift about 9-something miles west to west of Seal Key, and that's where we anchored down for the past 4 or 5 nights. Until yesterday, we swam the boat east towards Seal Key for about 4 miles, and we saw some fishermen. We thought they didn't see us, but the fishermen guys, they ended up listening to the radio last night, and they say, well, that ought to be those guys that are missing, and first thing this morning, they came and rescued us.
Elated family members and friends showed up on Thursday morning at Pawtuskee Dock in anticipation of their arrival. But the group stopped off in Ragged Island before heading to Nassau.
But I am so grateful that they are safe and sound.
The best news I ever heard was this morning, that he was safe. All right, and that I was so excited that I couldn't even stay to work. Tears of joy. Big grown man like me crying. All right, so that should tell you how much love I have for that young man.
I put faith in God. I put my trust in him, and I know Cecil. I know that Cecil is a man that he is better in sea than on land, so I know that he could have handled himself.
We thank God for all the people who prayed for us, and they were in prayer with us, and we were praying along with them, and we thank God that, he bring them back and they're all safe.
Now, it's not certain when the men will return home to Nassau, but for the family, they can now rest in knowing that the 3 men are safe and sound. Andrew Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Still to come tonight, hear about a toxic mixture and a recipe for economic disaster we want to avoid.
And Bahamian youth addressing issues affecting CARICOM. The Bahamas Tonight continues right after this.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Sun Oil Limited, fueling growth for people.